Bay had a wee bit of respite?
Yeah, they got a nice little rainfall last week. Can't remember what day it was, but yeah, so you know, everything from about 30 to about 40, 50 millimetres. So it's a good start. But you know, when you've, as we know in North Canterbury in particular, when you've been in drought and you've been in drought for months on end, that's just the start. I mean, they really do need a follow-up rainfall again to get them over to keep things going again. That'll kick-start a few things, but they really need some rainfall. Of course, there's a silver lining to everything, because those farmers that growing crops, particularly onions and those sorts of crops, they were able to harvest and lift and harvest within about 2 or 3 days. So yep.
It's their turn.
It's their turn. Yes, yes.
So overall, the season's been a bit strange because it's been patchy, but it's serious still.
Yes, it is. If you look at parts of, if you look at Hawke's Bay and Gisborne and those sort of areas, go into the eastern Bay of Plenty, it's still very, very dry there. I mean, you know, we know that 30 or 40 millimetres of rain doesn't solve the issues. If you come into the Canterbury area, it's still incredibly dry in North Canterbury, and everywhere else where we're irrigating, we still, if you're taking groundwater, we're still got very, very low groundwater levels. Even last week, had a client that is having to just close his ears and shut the gate valve down when he starts, because his water level's as low as it's ever been as long as he's been on that farm. So if you look ahead, there's a couple of ramifications of this. One is that we need to manage the water that's available for the rest of the irrigation season. We're in the middle of February. You know, we've probably got till the beginning of, let's say, the beginning of April to get to before we can really think that we might be getting out of the woods as far as the irrigation season is concerned. So we need to manage that groundwater that's there, the annual volume you've got left till the end of the season. And the other biggie that raises its head straight away is that to resolve the really low groundwater levels, we need an incredibly wet winter, and we need it to start really early. In those deeper groundwater systems, you know, 60 metres plus, we know it takes about 2 to 3 months for that groundwater system to respond to recharge from rainfall. So if you step back from about the beginning of September, say, then that means we need to have had that recharge by July. So that means May and June have got to be months from hell, basically, in a way. So there's those very low groundwater levels that we've got almost all the way across Canterbury have a twofold effect down the line.
So that's what you're praying for. Is there any indication?
Oh, I think that from my point of view, Rob, that's too far out. I mean, we're not in any particular weather pattern at the moment. It's been incredibly neutral, neither El Nino nor La Nina. So until we see you know, a settling down into one or other of those two forms, who knows what the next 3 to 5 months might bring. But certainly the next 3-month forecast is for it to be relatively normal or just below normal in terms of rainfall on particularly the eastern parts of New Zealand.
Tony, you're talking about managing water. Does that mean sacrificing some crops?
No, it's more about, from this point on, realising that days are shortening up. You know, we don't have as many daylight hours any longer. So even though we might get 30 degrees or up, you know, around that 30 degree, when you shorten up the number of hours that the plants can actually transpire during the day, it means that plants are using less water, we're taking less out of the soil, therefore our irrigations can afford to be a little more spread, or if you want to be on a more regular basis, put a little less on. So it's about starting to manage the amount of water that you abstract and irrigate with. So it's more about that than sacrificing anything at the moment. Arable farmers, hard out in the middle of harvest right now. I mean, you know, we're getting into the late ryegrass crops that are getting harvested. If you go into the North Island, then wheat crops are getting harvested. You know, we're starting to reduce the number of crops that are getting irrigated, but we should also be looking to manage that irrigation because our total water use is getting less and less during the weeks.
So people who've got pasture, dairy farmers and such, they should really be looking if they really need to rather than because they think they should.
That's right. And even the grass, I mean, you know, it's going to carry on growing until we get to that April-May period, but it's about, if you're on a rotation, you can afford to extend that rotation. If you're irrigating with centre pivots, then you might actually be able to turn off one round or have a day off in between rounds.
And it's going to save you money, Tony.
It will, absolutely.
Which is always a good thing.
It is.
Tony Devereux, thank you very much indeed.